it's really nice to have just a reminder every so often if there's something that you're trying to be mindful of, if you're trying to grow or, improve a certain aspect of the way you move through life. It's nice to have a little, vibration or a little something like, hey, remember you're trying to be mindful about this. And so for me, it's about coming into presence because I can get really like swept away in the moment and, lose track of like, where'd the day go? And it's like, well, because you were just constantly in the forward motion, it's harder to, I don't know, recall all the time that you spent, at least for me. And so I have it go off every 44 minutes, and it's a nice, beautiful, almost like a singing bell. It's a really long, drawn-out tone. And I just take a big, deep breath and, like, check in with myself, be in the present moment. And it's contagious. Welcome to the Do You Feel Heard podcast, a production of Helping the Herd. Helping the Herd is committed to empowering individuals to liberate themselves from the patterns that keep them from creating their ideal life. If you like this podcast, visit helpingtheherd.com to find resources and personalized coaching to empower you to be your best self.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Good morning, Derrick.
Hi.
How are we? Nicole, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Thanks, fellas. Good to be here.
Wonderful being with you both. I want to bring back an old tradition here that we kind of fell off of for a little bit. Let's tune in with 3 deep breaths. Listeners, please feel free to join us. Your eyes can be open or closed. You can sit up a little taller. Begin by breathing in deep through your nose. Fill up entirely, and then let everything out through the mouth. Feel your shoulders soften, your face soften. Just relax and arrive. Breathe in again, even deeper. Smooth, strong breath in. Fill up the belly, fill up the chest. And when you're ready, let everything go. Let go of the past, let go of the future. Just arrive here and now. And finally, the biggest breath you've taken all day. And when you're all the way full, sip in a little more air. And when you're ready, let everything go. Welcome back. You have arrived. I'm happy to be here and now with both of you. Always feels good.
Yeah, I needed that, especially today with the hecticness going on of, just life, right? And that was a good reminder as we head into this. I think something that I want to do is try to do that before I go into more interactions. I'm about to come to the States and spend a good amount of time with my family, and I am curious to see what would happen if before I walked in the door, for each meal, for, in the morning or whatever, if I just was able to give myself that gift of just like, coming back to this center line. Instead of being so horizontally, more vertically. Did I just freeze in a really unattractive way? Cool.
On this side, yes, but it might not look like that.
Yeah. The final recording will tell. Yeah, the final recording will tell. So, non-attachment. But no, what a great reminder. I think especially when it comes to family interactions. Yeah, what can we do to present ourselves in the way we want to and not be frozen in whatever contorted, stressed out, image that we might be coming into breakfast with. In healthcare, that was a practice I got into before knocking on a patient door. Clinic, seeing 20 patients a day. There was great advice that was given to me even before the meditation teaching stuff. Just take a moment before you knock, take a deep breath, and then you prepare yourself for battle. Prepare yourself for whatever's coming through, and it really helps. Those brief pauses.
I like that. And like it or not, with Emily, I mean, because these are often the people that we love the most and somewhat unconditionally and no matter what, even with all the complicated stuff there, that they, in marriages and in family, they can sometimes take the brunt of the stress that we're feeling, whereas our friends, we may have a bit more, I don't know if decorum's the right word, but just a little bit
Hmm.
more
Yeah.
um,
Authenticity, or so
flexibility with
authenticity
them, or
versus masking. Yeah.
yeah, maybe something like that. But I also think, I mean, even going into work meetings or really exactly anywhere, you know, to not lose track of that. I know, Ian, you have a bell on your phone that that reminds you at irregular times to take a deep breath, right?
Yeah, so it's a free app called the Mindfulness Bell, and it was recommended to me by a friend. They use it differently, and I've shared it with many clients for their own purposes. It's really nice to have just a reminder every so often if there's something that you're trying to be mindful of, if you're trying to grow or, improve a certain aspect of the way you move through life. It's nice to have a little, vibration or a little something like, hey, remember you're trying to be mindful about this. And so for me, it's about coming into presence because I can get really like swept away in the moment and, lose track. It's like, where'd the day go? And it's like, well, because you were just constantly in the forward motion, it's harder to, I don't know, recall all the time that you spent, at least for me. And so I have it go off every 44 minutes, and it's a nice, beautiful, almost like a singing bell. It's a really long, drawn out tone. And I just take a big, deep breath and like check in with myself, be in the present moment. And it's contagious. My partner's family will do it too. They'll hear the bell and they're like, "Oh, it's time to breathe, everybody!" And then everybody stops what they're doing and they take a deep breath. And yeah, I don't know. it's a great practice. It's served me for many years now to just slow down, take a breath. I'm safe. Everything's okay. I'm good. Where am I? What am I wanting to do? How am I wanting to move forward?
Hmm.
Just a legit check in, soothing the nervous system and kind of preparing my mind a little bit.
Oh, wonderful. It's those little things that if you can just, instantiate into your life and maybe spread into the lives of others, they can really make big differences. Uh, well, I want to be mindful of time. And Nicole, I think you had something you want to talk about today. What might that be?
I do. I want to talk about wanting. I think that this is something that I learned when learning the tools from you guys. We played a game, the wanting game, and this was a real game changer for me. And I really want to talk about wanting and, what it is, how it manifests, what it, why we have such complicated feelings about it. But first, we'll start, back up a little bit and tell you why it personally was such a game changer to me. So growing up, I was famous in my household for I was a little covetous, I guess. And so ads would come on TV, for Barbie, for Hungry Hippos, for whatever new game, whatever. And there would sit little 3-year-old Nicole and just point at the TV and go, I want that. I want that. And we'd be out at a store and it was, I want that. And I mean, to this day, I might look at my sister's, closet and be like, or my mom's closet and go, "Ooh, this is cute. I want that." But it was a bit also because it was this sort of goofy little thing. It turned into a bit of a joke, and then it, I think, changed something for me. And over time, probably not just this, but just as you get older and you want certain things and maybe they don't happen or they don't come about the way in which you want them to, wanting became very complicated for me. And I still struggle now to want things. And because what if I don't get it, right? And the premise of this game that we play, and this activity, I should say, that we do, is to remind us that it's okay to want something and we don't necessarily have to do something about it or fix it in order to for it to be okay to want something. Um, and so what I had kind of learned was if I want something, I either needed to be able to get it, or if I couldn't have it, then it was bad to want it. And that gets really complicated. Really messes with your mind a little bit as you get older and try to figure out, okay, what do I want 10 years down the line? What do I want 3 years down the line? What do I want in a partner? And there's a guilt, I think, or a shame that I've experienced. I don't know about you guys. That's where I want to lead us to talk about today, is because it's been something that's I'm still unraveling in my own life, but it's also been something that's been really powerful for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you for bringing that topic in today. It's a rich one. We'll have to be very mindful of time to cover this adequately with the time that we have, just because it's so deep and nuanced. But briefly, I mean, first of all, of course, I agree that not only is it okay to want, I would argue it's good to want. And for those of you that know the wanting game, that's funny. For those of you that don't, you should learn the
But
wanting game. We facilitate that. But yeah, so anyway, the what I wanted to share is just that, like, for me, the big realization was the wanting isn't the problem, it's the attachment to the outcome. That's where the suffering, where the, dissatisfaction, or, what makes wanting a negative thing is when you're attached to getting what you want. And if you don't get what you want, then you're going to be upset or you're going to have feelings. And so if you can separate the outcome from the want itself, then it's a great thing to want, because it's part of our biological, function. We want things, and it's a good thing to want things. So just wanted to add that little piece in there. Derrick, do you have
Yeah.
anything to add to that?
I do. Yeah, I love that. I agree with that. Yeah, that's the first thing that I thought of when you were sharing, that experience, Nicole. Like, it's not the wanting, it's the attachment to the outcome, the attachment to getting it, not getting it, it just being disappointed, it being disappointing. Maybe it's too good and it's all that I do now that I have this thing. It's the ring, it's the one ring, and now I have it and I covet it. I love that word covetous, Nicole. I think that was really good. Versus the positive of wanting, desire, the thing that motivates you. I want to succeed. I want to be a better person. I want these, positive things. And I thought about this, the way I started thinking about it was this desire to be easy that I think happens sometimes. We want to be, sometimes we want to not be the picky one. We want to be the one who it's easy enough to please, to where I think some people can go to the not wanting anything side of that. I don't have any preferences. Where should we eat today? No preference. What do you want to do? What sounds fun later? Nothing. Good. Whatever. And I
Whatever
think
you want.
people, whatever you want, exactly. People, I think that can, and I've been there before too, that's, being selfless, that's being helpful, that's being the good child. I think it probably goes back to some childhood stuff, very likely. And they think that's being easy. But what I've found as I've grown older is that's not easy. That puts so much pressure on me, if someone tells me that, to figure out what to do and what I want and what they actually want that they're not telling me. And for me, I love if someone is, like you said, Ian, not attached to the outcome, but has desires. I like being in nature. I like good food. I like the ocean. What should we do today? Let's have some wants. I want these things. I'm not attached to any of them. And then from there, we start playing a game together. We start building a great day together. But it's only through wanting and having desires that we get there. And the phrase from Yoga with Adriene, I just really love what she named her company, the free YouTube one. Find what feels good. Find what feels good. It's such a good way to start doing yoga. People get really, worried about yoga. They're like, I'm going to do it wrong. If you could start by finding what feels good in your own body, that's a great place to start. Just like the most basic stretch ever. And I think that's what we can do in life if we learn how to want and not feel that shame that you're talking about, Nicole, or that guilt for wanting. Can we find what feels good?
I don't want to take us on like a
So,
huge sidetrack, but I want to challenge
But I
that.
will.
I want to challenge that phrasing, because for a lot of people, what feels good, and Matt talked about this when he was on here, for a lot of people, what feels good is not serving them. It might feel good to people please because it feels better than the fear and the anxiety on the other side. It might feel good to sit on the couch and not move at all, and that's their yoga because that feels good in their body. But growth is uncomfortable, and so it's not always going to feel good. And feeling good might not be what you really need. It might be, in some cases, the easier thing. And so I'm going to keep challenging you on that. I know that
He makes a good point.
there is positive.
Yeah.
Yes, do things that feel good. That's important. But also, a lot of people have really deeply rooted unhealthy habits that feel really good because they're familiar. And so, doing what feels good might not be serving them. But before we just want to come back to the
Well,
thing that you were talking about, I know I just opened up a whole thing, but the other thing I wanted to talk about neglecting our wants for the sake of others, like that has a short time span. Eventually, that's going to be a problem. You can
Yeah.
only neglect yourself and pretend or, disregard or bury your wants for so long before eventually they will come to the surface. They're going to eat at you, it's or whatever. I mean, it looks differently for
Yeah.
everyone, but it's going to eventually have, you can't do it forever. It's not a sustainable path to neglect the needs for others either. Among all of the other wonderful points that you made about that, Derrick, I just wanted to add that onto it, because it is one of the most detrimental habits that I see with clients coming in is them violating their own consent and doing things because they're afraid of what happens if I don't, and just really extreme people pleasing, and it's just so damaging.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
And
perfect.
so, sorry.
No,
I was gonna
I do
say,
I do want to close that loop unless you can close it first, Nicole. Throw it to
no, no,
you,
you
but I
go, you
do.
go.
It's a short loop. It's a short loop. I don't think it was a big tangent at all, but I'm really glad you said all that. And so, if you want to address that part for sure about the find what feels good, Nicole,
No, no,
go
you go,
for it.
you go.
It'll be a succinct one because I think you hit it with the second point and you hit it right on the head. What I think could be added to find what feels good that wouldn't sound as good as a brand or whatever is find what feels good long term. There's a better way of doing it, but being impeccable with our speech is important. Find what feels good short term is what we talked about with Matt and what you're pointing out, these short term, laying on the couch or having the McDonald's or the dopamine hit. Find what feels good short term. But just like you were saying with your second point about, short-term strategies like pushing down all your wants and desires, not they build up, they show up in other ways. That's what I'm talking about with find what feels good long term. And that's the realization I've been having lately. And my partner and I were just talking about this on our hike this morning. Like we got up early, we went on a hike, and we were just tired of hitting snooze and finding what feels good, the snooze button short term, and then having a crummy day. It was like we
Right.
want to go through the hard thing and find what feels most good, find what feels like a higher good. I don't want to put absolutes, but find what feels like a higher good, find what feels long term good. And that's the orientation. So totally great qualifying point. Find what, and you can help me find the brand that will rebrand later, but it's a little more nuance to it.
Yeah,
Find
we'll
what
need to
feels
work. We'll
long
need to
term good.
workshop that name.
We'll be
I,
workshopping.
I think, I think what I'm hearing from it is find what feels good enough for growth, maybe. It's like good enough for growth. It's getting there, but good enough is also such you know,
Yeah, good enough sounds
a
like cruel. Because
loaded phrase itself.
yeah,
But
because this is This is better. This is like that good that you get whenever you did have the what's the word, delayed gratification. You built it up, and then it's the good at the end of a hike. It's the good at the end of a long curriculum that you learned and you graduate. It's the good of accomplishments. The end of the marathon good. That's totally different than the sitting on the couch good. And they're both good, but which one's big good? I want big good.
mm, yeah.
Yeah, I like
Well,
the phrasing of highest good, or what's
Yeah.
find what's good for your highest self, or you
Yeah.
know, something along those lines, zooming out a little bit, not what's good for the, you know, you in this moment, but what about what's going to benefit the you in 10 years from now, or whatever. Like, where are you building to that ideal? What, you know, what's getting you toward the ideal, I think is
Exactly. And to tie it back in, Nicole, to this topic, it's wonderful. It's like the only way you get there is with want,
right.
is with wants. You can't know what that highest 10-year good is unless you have a want. If I want to have a pain-free body and a strong, capable body, I have to go through lots of short-term discomfort
Mm-hmm.
to build toward that long-term highest or higher good. And I can only do that if I want it. So
Right.
yeah, wanting is a great thing.
So, just before we got on this call, I was packing some things into some boxes, and I came across a little deck of cards that a friend got me for my birthday a couple years back. She knows I like a good deep conversation, and she gave me like these little conversation
Mm.
cards, the meaning of life. And I don't know, felt inspired to look inside and see what was in them. And knowing that I wanted to talk about wanting, I pulled out two that were related to that. So the first one is, where do you want to be in 10 years? Right? And this card was stuck to
That's
something else. I
funny.
don't remember what that was. And what do you want more of in your life? And to ask ourselves these questions. And I'm going to first start with what do I want more of in life? And then I will tell you why this is a bit complicated for me, and we can talk about that. But what do you want more of in your life? I've been trying to use this without even it being the card more for myself lately. I was going through a bit of a tough time and I felt really ungrounded. And somebody had told me, okay, so you want to feel grounded, right? And I said, yeah. And they said, so you have to do grounding things. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, what does that look like for me? How do I do that? If I want to feel more grounded and then I need to do more grounding things, then what can I bring into my life? What can I have more of in my life that will
Mm.
allow me to feel the way I want to feel? So, for me, that now looks like a lot more yin yoga. It is literally on the floor, it's not a lot of ask from your body, it's quiet time with yourself. You're in a room generally with other people who are also like there to just chill out, and the energy is there. And so started doing that. Started eating more grounding foods. Started um, drinking more tea than coffee. Whatever
Mm.
that looks like to somebody. And it also meant that I it meant I needed to be more careful with how I was sleeping too. And so it all was this bigger picture of what things I wanted in my life to help me feel a little bit more grounded and centered and less chaotic and down. So that one I really, really like. And you really can only know what you need to do when you want something. However,
Yeah.
this little bugger here,
Can we pause? Can we talk about that first one before we get into the next thing?
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Cool.
got to pause on that one, but no, absolutely. And I love the juxtaposition of the two. But no, definitely. I just love that framing overall. You can't know the instrumental goals. I think that's the right word for them, instrumental goals, unless you have, a bigger goal. If you don't know what you want, it's hard to figure out the things you need to do to get there. And it's so easy to just get lost in this disempowering state of just, saying this is what I want, but not doing anything. And what I'm hearing, Nicole, is about a lot of agency and taking the agency and just that, responsibility of if this is what I want. Like, I'm the primary person who's going to be able to get it. The world's not
Yeah.
going to pop up with a fairy godmother who's just like, what is it you wanted again? Let me wave my wand.
If
So,
I want to
yeah,
be
I
more
love that.
grateful, I have to start acting more grateful, finding things to be gracious or grateful about, and totally spot on with that is like that it creates the agency, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to shine light on like kind of the process that's happening here, which is this card is asking, what do you want more of in your life? Which is creating an opportunity for you to create awareness, to have awareness of
Mm.
what is the thing, what are you striving toward, what isn't there now, or what do you want to add, And without like awareness, and I say this over and over, awareness is the first step to creating change. You have to know what to change before you can change it. And so if you're not aware, if you're not taking the time to think about the things that you want, you're not going to be able to truly get what you want in the end. You have to have clear awareness. And so, and then the next step that you're doing is creating the action step. Once you have that awareness, sounds like, oh, I want grounding. Okay, well, now I can do things that get me the grounding. And so just from a process standpoint, I just think it's important to kind of zoom out and paint that picture for anyone who maybe it's not for them what they want more in their life of, or want more of in their life, but maybe it's, you know, a completely different want. What do they want for their children, right? Mm-hmm. And then once you have that clear picture of I want X, Y, and Z for my children, now you have the ability to move into that action space, which is so vast and broad, but at least you have it with some sort of direction. Whereas if you're just swimming in all the things you could do for your kids, you know, you might not be getting them exactly what you want if you're not clear on what you want for them. So just wanted to put that out there to you.
Yeah, that actually, yeah, I there was something that brought back for me when Derrick and I were talking. We're each sort of like, oh, you go. Um, for me, I wanted to go at that time back to that idea of, you know, when somebody says, oh, what do you want to do for dinner or whatnot, and the other person says, you know, I don't know, or whatever is fine. Um, there is I do find that I can be that person that's like, oh, whatever you want, right? And that may not really be true, but I can struggle when there's too many options out there to narrow it down. And so that I think that even having that awareness of there's too many options, I need to pare this down can be really helpful. And being aware of, ooh, I'm now actually in my own pattern of kind of panicking because of what's that called? Analysis paralysis,
Analysis
right?
paralysis. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I also think that it's so important for two things to remind yourself there is an abundance of things you can want. Just because you choose one now doesn't mean you can never choose one later, or that it's a mistake or whatever. And maybe at another time, instead of, you know, um, instead of wanting to feel grounded, and that's what I want more of in my life, maybe that's really cultivated. Now what I might really want is adventure or connection, although grounding and connection I find often find each other. But then similarly, if you do see somebody who is in that type of way, it can help to say, okay, why don't you give me three options and I'll choose? Or why don't I give you a few options and you choose? Because a lot of the time, my father and I used to have this fight when I was a kid. He'd say, what do you want for dinner? And I'd say, I don't know. Or whatever. And he'd say, you have to have some opinion. I just couldn't pull ideas into my brain. And so then he would say, okay, do you want pizza? And I would say, no. And he'd say, do you want this? And I'd say, no. And then maybe I'd say like, I want Italian. And he'd say, well, I don't want Italian. And I was like, okay, well, we're clearly not going to get on the same page here, right? So you asked me what I wanted, I didn't know. And so instead we would have to, at some point we learned that the only way to get past this for us was one of us needed to present three options that we would want, and the other one would choose the one they wanted the most, or that they least didn't mind. And that can be a burden, but it also can be a really good opportunity to have an awareness of somebody else too, and what their process is and what they may need. So just wanted to throw that in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, that analysis paralysis really gets me. I have the hardest time picking a show to watch, you know, on the infinite Netflix scroll or whatever it is, picking out what you want to eat. And so I think especially in relationships, it's so much about learning each other's, you know, stumbling blocks like analysis paralysis and learning how to work with them instead of, you know, building resentment for each other's peculiarities. You know, if you have
I think
a
we
hard
call
time
that blind
picking
spots.
yeah, people's blind, exactly. I think it can be really, I think that's a masterful couple is able to see each other's blind spots and help shine light, shine awareness, or at least help, you know, with the practical things like picking dinner that might be made more difficult from those, and slowly over time maybe bring light to them. But I think that's a probably a really common example. We all have to eat, that most people can resonate with. But also, you really brought up abundance in that I really like with this wanting. I think an abundance mindset is what can keep wanting from becoming coveting and from becoming this like attachment. If you feel non-abundant, if you feel deprived, if you feel like, oh, I need this, I don't want this, I need this. That's why we talk about language so much in the work we do. Sometimes need can be a word that can kind of get you stuck somewhere. It's, that's deprivation, that's coming from lack. And I think it can lead to non-great outcomes, a lot of attachment. But wanting almost implies abundance. I have all these things, and this is the thing I want most, or second most, or third most. And like you said, there's an abundance of time, so these things will come back around next week, next year. Getting to that abundance mindset, whether you are abundant, which who's to say that's relative, whether you feel abundant right then, I think getting to your mindset of abundance, what a great place to start when it comes to wanting. To wanting.
Well, you just said something that touched something in me, which is, there is sometimes this idea of wanting can be like, so you had mentioned abundance, and so whether you are or not, right? But especially for people who may be, right, have more abundance in resources um or things, opportunities, whatever. I don't know if for everybody, but sometimes for me, when I'm in that position, I do feel even guilty wanting when I have so much. And then other times when I'm not in as financially abundant of a place, I feel guilty wanting because I don't have, or I shouldn't want that. And this can be, this can also be a really complicated trap that if you can, like you say, bring in the this abundance mindset and to take a look and say, well, it's good to want, yeah, and it doesn't necessarily need to be fixed right now, but it is good to want that. But B, just because I can't have it now, right, doesn't mean that it's not something I could have later, or doesn't, or just because I could have it now doesn't mean I have to have it now, right? So there's so many different ways. Wanting is an automatic thought that comes up in our brain. And as a child, I was doing that. I was speaking the single thought bubble that came up that said, "That's cool. I want that." Right? And the idea was that, I mean, after that, after being a child, now you have all those other voices that kind of come on top that say you should, you shouldn't, or that's good, that's bad. All the judgment that comes after that initial thought, which is the automatic, knee-jerk brain thought bubble. And so I think that's what I can be so complicated. And for me, I get caught up a lot now in, if I want something. So say I want something, I'll use this, right? So this is really the best example. Where do you want to be in 10 years? I am a fence sitter. I don't know if you guys know what this is, but if you're on our fence sitting, it's a entire Reddit thread of people who don't know whether or not they want to have kids. And I sometimes find myself there, and I always regret being there because I always end up in tears. I will tell you that. But it is really hard for me to picture, when people ask me this, to picture my life, because I don't know whether or not I want this thing. There are some moments where the automatic thought comes up and I do, and then there's other moments where I don't, or sometimes it comes up and then there's an argumenting side for both of these, right? And so it's really hard for me when I see something like this, because it feels like I have to choose what I want, that it is a yes or a no, that it is, and that I can't want a life with both. Either way would be, I mean, you can't. I either have children or I do not, right? And how do I want that? And so this is where I'm a bit screwed up with wanting right now. And that's where all these complex shoulds, want, future talk, blah, being not in the here and now is coming into play. And I think there's a lot of people who feel that way about relationships, about kids, about jobs, about, I mean, you name it, about buying a car, right? So I'm curious where this thought takes you guys.
Yeah. Ian, I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
I'm struggling to not want to rewind and talk about something else that popped in my head before you got into this. Wish there was like a little bit of a pause there. I want to get to the fence sitting after this because it's like
That's
burning
what
a hole in
noting's
my
for.
head.
I got a
So,
big old. I'll note whatever I need to. I got a pen, man.
right,
We
I've
have an
got all my stuff
abundant.
typed out.
We have an abundance of time.
Nicole, you were talking about this like shame and guilt coming up with wanting. And I just wanted to plug in Rosenberg's OFNR, observing and the stage of observing without evaluation, observing without evaluating whether it's good or bad, just simply observe. And I think that's what this wanting game is all about, is just observing. I have a want, and that's it. I don't have to add feelings about the want. I do have it, and that in itself is its own statement, and it stands alone that you have the want, right? And so shame and guilt and all of these things that we add to the ways that we perceive things that have happened or things that are happening, in my experience, especially professionally, it doesn't serve you to add shame and guilt about things. It doesn't bring you up. It's not going to empower you. If anything, it's going to limit you. And if you can observe your experience or past experiences without that evaluation piece, it's so liberating and uplifting to simply just see it as it is without the judgments that we place on ourselves and others, for sure on others too. So anyway, that was my charge. I had to get that out.
Yeah. Well, so I want to actually acknowledge that because that's a really good point. And, when you're playing the game, you have somebody mirroring back to you and they get to tell you it's good to want. And then you move on. Nobody has to do anything, right? I I can do that to myself in some ways, right? And like for example, I'm like, I want a cookie. And I'm like, it's good to want, right? But then I think, what are my actual goals right now? And it's like, well, what I want, at least one thing I know I want in 10 years is to have a really healthy physique, healthy diet, healthy body, no pain. And so I'm like, well, maybe the cookie's not the best idea, but it's good that you want it, babe.
Yeah.
Totally cool. You cute little cookie monster. And I do have that conversation with myself. I am a cookie monster.
That's good. It's a conscious remodeling of it. It's a conscious, like, instead of the without evaluating that you're talking about, which I think is a great place to start. If we can acknowledge there is shame and guilt and acknowledge that again without evaluating whether that's good or not, we can then take a step to combat it, to work with it. Let's say not use violent language, to work with it. If there is shame and guilt, how do I work with shame and guilt? I can, counterbalance it. Oh, it's good to want. And I just think it's really interesting that you shared both, the without evaluating and then what we can do, Nicole, like whenever we actually are aware that this is our mind and we're playing a funny game with it. How do I want to, talk to my mind today? And we have a lot of agency again there to reframe these things. And that's what I'm hearing there.
It's the same.
But
It's
it
the same
sounds
process.
like for me,
it's still observing and then evaluating, and then you're observing what was coming up and you're evaluating that, and then you can just go forever.
yeah.
Observing all of the things that you feel, the things that you think, and really kind of dissect how you're perceiving your experience and what's alive and what's behind it all. Like, I really like that picture that's being painted of like an infinity mirror. You're observing and then without evaluating, but then you're going to observe what would have been the evaluation, but not evaluate that. And then, you know what I mean? Like it keeps going.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So for me, I think there's kind of three ways that I respond. So one is if I'm in a really, I guess, like pretty self-aware place and I can just be like, good to want, move on. The other is like, good to want, but no. And like, it's all, don't, it's all good, or I guess, or yes, right? And then the other one would be this place of shame and guilt that I'm going to now try to be, this is a really good reminder to try to come back and say, okay, all I thought was I wanted it. Like, that's all. Fact. Period. That's all. And try to deal with it that way. easier said than done a lot of the time. But I'm going to keep practicing that. And that's a really good reminder that I can be my own mirror in this wanting game when that happens. When you're not in the game itself, it's a lot easier to not remember
Sure.
that. So,
Yeah. Are you guys familiar with the concept? I think it's, I'm not sure who developed it, but of basically like trying to identify the voice, whose voice it is when those things come up. So when shame or
would
guilt
that
comes
be
up,
Dick Schwartz, right?
I don't know.
Oh,
Might be
But
internal family system.
the idea of, okay, well, whose shame and guilt is that? Because you learned that somewhere. Someone shamed you or guilted you for that thought or that want for having it, and you're just replaying it over and over and associating it with yourself, but really it's someone else's voice. And if you can try to discern who it is, then you can separate yourself from it and no longer identify with that shame and guilt. You can observe it and be like, oh yeah, that's someone else's shit that they're putting on me, and I don't have to put that. I don't have to take it. It's you know, it's that proverb of like, somebody gives you a gift and you don't want it, so you give it back. I don't want that gift. No, thank you. I don't want that gift that you gave me of shame and guilt. You take that back. It belongs to you. It's your shame and guilt. It's not mine.
I don't know that proverb. Regifting, the original regifting.
Pretty
Right back
sure
at
it's
you.
one of Ram Dass's lectures. He was talking about how they, you know, if somebody says something mean to you, maybe it wasn't Ram Dass, but somebody says something mean to you or whatever, hateful, you don't have to take it. The same way that if somebody brings you a gift and you don't want it, you can give it back. I don't accept that gift. I don't want that gift. That's yours. Like if they're projecting their feelings or their frustrations or whatever onto you, you don't have to receive it. You don't have to accept that gift.
Yeah, that's really powerful, and it's a great framing for the wanting with domain. What's in your domain, what's in someone else's domain. And I think that's just another really helpful thing to bring into wanting and why it's good to want. If you keep it in your domain and you know have a strong boundary, and then why wouldn't you want? But I think what happens is we get crossed in our domains, and we for better or worse care about how things will affect others, which is sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. And then it gets muddy, and that's where so much of the shame and guilt comes in. Whether someone crossed into your domain or you crossed into theirs, that's where it starts to get muddy. That's a really good concept. So the same way, if we can remember we don't have to take whatever those gifts are that are coming to us, wow, yeah, it's very freeing. Yeah. But you're dodging the fence sitting question, or the 10 years,
I'm
and
not
or how you think
dodging
about
anything,
that.
man. I'm following the the train of thought that I was on earlier, and now we're here. It has evolved. I haven't heard you talk about fence sitting either, Mister Projector over
I
there.
prefer to sit on flagpoles. I'm a flagpole sitter.
Harvey Danger.
Yeah, that's me. My last name is Danger and my first name is Harvey. I've been living a lie for a long time. You found me.
But you
You
sing
got
that
me.
song. There's a
I
song
know.
called Flagpole Sitting.
I know. Yeah. I was both referencing it and the 1950s, 1930s protest movement of sitting on flagpoles. Both wonderful parts of American culture.
I still feel like both of you are trying to avoid this conversation right now.
Yeah, kids are hard. In 10 years. I'll try my best not to avoid it a little bit. It's a hard question. I just want to acknowledge that. How to envision the future is so hard, because even in your most abundant state, in feeling abundance and not feeling, this deprivation, there's so many possible things you can do, and it gets almost more tricky the more empowered you feel, the more agentive you feel, and the more you are ambitious. And you can see, I could build so many different lives, I could have so many different accomplishments, impacts, there's different things that pull at me. And so, almost like the infinite Netflix scroll, I'm just like, what story do I want to tell, what life do I want to lead? And it's hard. So I'll just acknowledge that, and then make any answer the hard question.
Well, and also though, like, and this is for anyone, right? When it's like, well, this is what I think I want, right? This is what I want right now, but what if I change what I want? Like, think about thinking of a career, right? And a lot of people fresh out of college are going, well, yeah, this is what I want. and then it's not what they want,
Yeah.
or they think they want something and then tell themselves they can't do it, so go into something else and then go back to that other thing eventually. Maybe, hopefully, who knows? And so it's like it it's hard. It's easier sometimes to live in the abundance mindset when it's like, yeah, do I want pizza, burgers, Chinese food, a salad tonight, right? Inconsequential wants. Do I want a black car, a brown car, a green car? Not that big of a deal. Do I want to go to grad school to become a lawyer, a therapist, a doctor, whatever? That's a little bit more substantial, right? And what if you don't know if that's what you want forever? And again, then you get to kids, like a real life sentence. That seems the hardest to abandon ship on. I certainly don't want to do that. So this is where it's almost like this major duality, and it's hard to say, how can I want this and also want this? Or how can I even imagine a life like this? Because then I'm shutting out this want and really just, blah,
All right, I'll do
you
it.
know?
Yeah, here we go. I think that just on the face of it, it's good to want both of your 10-year realities, right? It's good to want the one that you envision that has kids, and it's good to want a vision that doesn't. And they're both valid and equally, real and deserve that, acknowledgement that they are both there and they're both, reasonable wants. And I certainly can't push you or urge you in a direction that's, when it comes to you having kids, that's something you are going to have to figure out. And also maybe something that, if it's meant to happen, kind of happens outside of your control.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Right. And so I have a kid, so like it is it's I've always want like for me that was an easy one. Like I didn't have a dad around a lot of my childhood, and so I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be a badass dad who like really cared for his kid and kind of, almost taking my daddy issues and turning them into really good karma for my kid and like giving him the best support he could have that I didn't have and kind of vicariously support him in ways that I wasn't supported. And so you talk about your childhood traumas of like, oh, Nicole wants something else. Nicole wants something. For me, it was arguing because I had questions. I wanted to understand things, and I was, punished and ridiculed and shamed for asking so many questions, challenging things, because I didn't understand why we were doing things the way that we did. And so, like with my kid, I get to, hold that space. I get to, oh, you have questions, cool, let's talk about it. Let's talk about any random thing that pops in your head. Let's talk about it because, I think we forget that our kids have a very limited understanding of this very complicated thing that we're all experiencing together. There's so many layers and there's so much they don't know. And I think it's easy to take for granted. Like, you don't know that? Like, you should know that by now. Like, but they don't. And that's shouldn't be a problem. At least not the way that I parent. But anyway, as far as just fence sitting in general, like, I personally don't have that issue. I don't have an issue being decisive, but specifically knowing that, like, I know in my body that my path is going to be laid out for me. And that if I just take a step, I just keep walking my path, doors are going to open, doors are going to close. I'm not in control of those doors, and I'm not attached to any of those doors. I'm tuning into like what feels good in my body about how I spend my time and how I interact with people, and do I feel fulfilled? Is this a passionate life? Is this, am I don't know. Do I feel like I'm fully living? And if I am, then all the other things don't really matter that much. I get really deep into the rabbit hole of like Buddhism and people who would spend years in a cave. And for them, like that felt like the thing they needed to do, and it all worked out for them. And so, like for me, whether I'm in a cave or whether I'm doing this work or whether I'm learning tree nets, which is a really cool thing I found on Instagram. Shout out Tree Net Collective, really cool. They take like 550 cord and they make these wild, like almost like treehouse, like trampoline combination. Like if you have a bunch of trees, you can like
That
build
sounds
like a
great.
whole little ecosystem out of 550 cord.
That's dope.
I bought their online class because it looks really cool, and I've been waiting and waiting for them to do that. So anyway, whether I'm doing that, whether like I want to do, I'm a tinkerer though, so like I do everything. I want to. I'm not going to be put in a box. I'm not going to be an accountant for 40 years. That's just not my path. I'm going to do 50 things over that same amount of time. Um, and yeah, if whatever I'm supposed to be doing, if I'm supported in that, and if the universe is like, hell yeah, here's all these opportunities, I'm like, cool, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because clearly it's being supported. Whereas if I'm trying to do one thing and I'm hitting a wall and I'm just not succeeding at it, well then maybe that's not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And so I'll back up and I'll kind of take a look at it from a bigger picture, and maybe it requires perseverance, or maybe it requires a shift. But typically, if I tune into my gut, my intuitive sense, it's fairly easy for me to find where I'm supposed to go and what I'm supposed to do. So I don't really sit on fences.
Must be nice because my butt's sore. Tell you
That's a
that.
perfect response to that. I didn't know
Ah,
similar. Similar, yeah.
Sorry.
My flagpole sitting and my fence sitting both have left a sore butt. No, yeah, very jealous, Ian, and it's wonderful. And my question to you with that is like, how far in your planning can you take that way of being? Is there diminishing returns with, following your gut after 1 year? Can you have a 10-year plan like that? Can you have a 20-year plan like that? Hello, baby.
Cora, you
Um,
asked for her earlier, so
Absolutely, Cora's Anita. I saw her.
she's huge now.
Yeah, we saw her when she was a little baby before. What happened?
Pequeño.
that's right. Sorry, Derek, to interrupt. So you're asking about how does my non-fence sitting impact my like 10-year planning?
How can you take that? How far can you take that, way of being that, just checking in with your intuition, doing what's fulfilling, and does that reach barriers when it comes to, longer term plans?
So I think again, focusing on the non-attachment, like I'm not attached to what 10 years from now looks like. I have no idea. I couldn't possibly begin to fathom what life in any capacity is going to look like in 10 years. Like technologically speaking, the world, politics, war, food, poison, plastics, like there's just so much. I have
That's right.
no clue what 10 years from now is going to look like. I know that I want to have my family. I want my partner and my son, and if there's future children, like I know that I want them to be safe and protected and cared for, and I'm going to do my best to provide that environment. And I know that I want to continue serving people in this work that I'm doing. And hopefully there are opportunities between now and then that I can sustain that. But if I have served my purpose, which is to, again, zooming out, we have no idea why we're here, like the whole big picture. If my purpose or one of them is to be in this work to help one specific person so they can go on and do whatever they need to do, I accept that I've completed that then. If the opportunities are no longer there for me to help people in this way, then I must have done what I was supposed to do. And now I'm supposed to do something else. And I'm going to go and do that because the opportunity is there to do it. And so that's my answer on 10 years.
That's great. Yeah, that's perfect. Not too loose, not too tight.
Right.
It was interesting the things you pointed out that even with the time span of 10 years or 20 years, there's a few things that are like through lines that, you're always, as far as we can tell reasonably, we're always going to want safety, health, our family to be safe and healthy. There's like a few things that are going to follow through that help it, not be totally amorphous. But then I can see why in an ever-changing world, being a little more loose on the, actual details will help you to get to one of the best possible timelines maybe. And that's about one of the last plugs I want to make for that movie that I know you like, Nicole, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think it touches this really well, where they talk about multidimensional travel and just like different timelines and what it means to, I don't know, to have all those different possibilities, and how far away are you from the lifetime where you were a famous actor or actress or a martial artist, or and then how to know that and live your life that you are in right now. and where to move from there, knowing your potentials. So I'll plug that one, but I also want to be mindful of time for our guest and see if, Nicole, if there's anything else you want to, hit on or reflect after this little
Yeah,
conversation. We covered a lot
yeah.
of ground. We covered a lot of
We
ground.
we did, and I do think this is such a rich topic, and I wish that I had an abundance of time right now to be sitting here and chatting with you guys because I want to. Maybe we'll do a part two sometime. But before we sign off, I would be really curious. I want to talk about, or I want to ask you guys about the difference between willing to, like wanting to and willing to. I think that's really important when you do talk about wanting and the importance of wanting and what that means. Then there's also sometimes you don't want, right? So, yeah. And then lastly, I'm so curious to know, Derrick, I guess you can make up your own time frame. It can be 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, but I'm curious to ask the same question to you. What do you want in that whatever time frame? But we can start with the willing to versus want to.
How about I give it a brief one and then send it over to Ian. Ian has a lot more on training on consent and stuff, and I'm interested to see how you answer this. But I'll get the basic out of the way. When I hear that, willing to means like I would do this. I do not view it as a hurt to me, or at least not something that I'm willing to draw a boundary or say no for, and that's complicated. Willing to could mean I'm willing to like suffer a bit to do this, or I'm willing to and it'll be neutral for me. Versus wanting to means this would be a positive for me. This would be, for whatever reason, a good thing. Going back to find what feels good or highest good. Like I would want to do that versus I'm willing to, and it might be neutral or negative if I'm willing to. So I'll leave it there. What do you think, Ian?
When I think of, or when I hear want to, willing to, don't want to do, I immediately go to the visualization of domain, boundaries, and limits. And so if I want to, it's in my domain. It's mine. It belongs to me. If I'm willing to, then that's a limit. And limits are changing constantly. And so if I'm willing to do it, that's me saying that while it's not inherently my desire, I am available to do that. And I'm willing to consent to that, because either, I feel like it's typically motivated by my feelings for someone else. And so maybe I want you to feel secure. And so I'm willing to do this thing. Or maybe you had a long day and your body is sore and I want you to feel less pain. And so I'm willing to do this thing because I'm motivated by how I feel about you and what I want for you, right? And then if you don't want to, I mean, that's, for me, it's just outside of, to do it would be outside of the wheel. And so it would be, but if to do it would be bumping up against that boundary that protects our domain, which is protected by the emotion of anger. And so if I don't want to do it, on the other side of that, if I violate that, will be anger. And so it feels just like, a no. A no in every sense of the word. It is a no if I don't want to. There's no room for me. There's no room for people pleasing there. We're not going to do it if we don't want to do it. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's where my mind goes when I hear those three.
I also think, though, that there's a willing to and a wanting to within yourself, right? I do not want to pack my apartment right now, but I am willing to because, well, I really want to do the renovation on my house. And in order to do that, I gotta get the crap out of my home. So, it's not always necessarily in relation um, to others, the willing to versus the want to, perhaps in the
Yeah.
form of consent, right? When you're having that conversation, but it's also in the form of yourself when you have goals, right? So just like we started off earlier, Derrick, you would rather right now sleep in, but you want to move forward. You want to have these adventures, so you're willing to get up, right? And so I feel like Ian is not, he's trying to poke a hole in this right now. I see his eyes looking up. What are your thoughts here?
I don't know. I'm still trying to trace it down because you're packing because it's required if you want to do something else. You could outsource it, I guess, right? You could outsource it and have somebody else do it if you don't want to, but you don't want to pay someone else to do it. So your don't want is outweighing what you want. And so you're doing it. And so you like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
a willingness for me feels like I'm not a compromise. I don't like that word here because it doesn't feel accurate. But like, if you're willing to do something, for me, that connotation is like, all right, I'll do this because, you know, it doesn't feel internal. Like, if I want a healthy body, then I'm going to go run. And I'm doing it because I want this thing. It is a necessary stone that I must step on if I want to get to this other thing. So you packing is because you want to.
Here's how I parse that. I think that we are fundamentally ambivalent. And I think the sooner we accept that, the sooner things get a little simpler. We have conflicting wants, desires, motives, all the time, always. And so when you're talking about this self versus other distinction, one thing I often find myself doing is viewing both, I guess, past, but especially future versions of myself as other people. There's the potential future version of myself where I got up today and went on the hike and, you know, felt better. And there's the potential version of me where I snoozed. And so what am I willing to do for future me? And what do I want to do for future me? And again, they're always going to be ambivalent, and they'll be competing desires. Part of me will want to have rested and be, you know, have more sleep, and part of me will want to have been more exercised. And those might be in competition and conflict. And then from there, I can do my best, following my intuition, I guess, to make that. But that's how I square it. The willing and wanting is kind of four different versions and potentials of myself, almost as if they're other people.
I almost want to open this up to like listeners. I would love to get feedback on like, is it, I don't know, like, is it I want this more than I want that, and so I'm going to do that? Where's the line between I'm wanting and I'm willing? Like, it feels like they're two separate things to me, and like, I want to be healthy more than I want to be unhealthy, so I'm going to do this thing that's like not comfortable, but it's required because I want this. So it's not I don't know, that doesn't feel like willing to me. Willing is something very, I don't know, it feels different. So anyway, if any of our listeners have thoughts or any insight on that, I'd love to just hear just more perspectives so that maybe I can get some clarity if somebody has, you know, a certain way that they look at that distinction. And also, as always, putting that out there as well to anyone who has questions, things that they want us to talk about, specific things that they're experiencing and they're wanting perspective on. Please reach out. Please submit that to us. We'd be happy to hold space for that during one of our podcasts.
Email is in the description for this podcast, or leave a comment if you're listening on a platform with comments. We would love to hear those. And also want to plug, we'll put a video that talks about domain boundaries and limits in the comment section as well, or in the description for this video, because we talked about it a lot. And so for anyone interested in that language, and obviously we found it very useful in this discussion, you can learn more about domain boundary and limits at the video.
Right. Yeah, and that video, credit for that is schoolofconsent.org. Dr. Betty Martin, she is responsible for the Wheel of Consent, conceptualizing the domain boundaries and limits concepts. Incredible organization, been very, very life-changing and transformational, her reframe of consent. So want to make sure we send credit where it is due.
Yeah. Good old Doc Martin.
She's
awesome.
great.
Derrick, I'm not going to let you get off without giving a little bit about what you want.
I'm ready for it. All right, I'll do the best I can. No, it's to be honest, for me, it's a very difficult question. I've had a lot of change in my life. I've had a lot of geographic changes, big changes, deaths and lives and all the stuffs. And so it's a really interesting period of time for me. It's a little more chaotic. And so I feel like when I do my best to tune in and, really get the clear vision of this swarm of possibilities, I'm struggling right now too. So I'm, trying to follow In's approach more or less. It's similar. Like I try to tune in and see what's real day after day, try to get my brain, my body into a healthy position. What feels healthy to me, what feels good and highest good to me, so that I hopefully have more clarity. And just, I'm, kind of putting that out there and trying to do the work myself to get that, and meditating and doing all the things that work for me to feel clear, to feel like I can see clearly. So I'm doing that and hoping, willing, being receptive to things coming in. And when I think longer term, it is just so hard. I see so many possibilities. I believe in myself is one way of putting it. So there's a real abundance. I believe in myself, my community. I've come a long way from making it to being the first person in my family to go to college, from paying through college and grad school and getting scholarships, and going from where there was like no opportunity to an abundance is something that I'm really thankful for, because it leads me to having that in all other areas of my life. I'm like, okay, you can do it if you set your mind to it. I truly believe that about myself, as I do with many others. I'm inspired by all my friends who do amazing things all the time and make things happen, like these people here with me. And it's just, it's a place that is really difficult because of what I've talked about. There's just too many possibilities out there. So like Ian said, I think one of the things I do is try to accept the love that is given, if it feels right, and the opportunities that are given, and kind of let the universe guide me there, while keeping a overarching, loose, but not too tight, but not too loose plan for the future. And one way that has materialized that does still feel great, so I'll speak it into existence here, is something that I would probably call the Middle Way Wellness Center, which is a collaborative wellness center that I would own and operate, where you would have healing professionals of many different types. I would like to do a more naturopathic, holistic type of like primary care that's very functional medicine, very integrated, very like, what are you eating? Are you sleeping? What's your exercise, before prescribing a bunch of medications, basically. I think I would like to practice that along with the psychedelic therapy that I've been trained in, and have other professionals in, therapists, chiropractors, massage therapists, you name it, things that help, acupuncture, Eastern medicine, different specialties, and have a collaborative environment where people really get better. So that's one of the dreams that I would like to, and one of the things that I am trying to build skills for, connections, and orient toward in a loose way, again, because that attachment. I'm trying my best to not, need it and cling too tightly and then strangle that dream before it has the ability to, have its fullest form. So thanks for asking. It's really helpful to talk about these things. And I just want to point out that, just bring awareness to that, how great it is to have friends and partners and people who ask you things and listen and, help build that awareness. It's a real gift.
Well, remind me the name. What was the name of the place again?
The Middle Way Wellness Center.
All right. Make sure you buy that domain.
Oh, good call. See, the logistics already. That's what I'm talking about. If it doesn't already exist.
Yeah, get that domain.
The name is less important than what we do there, of course. But that's a great call. Yeah. Get that domain. Hey, it's domain boundaries and limits. That's what I'm talking about.
Full circle.
I hate to tell you, but there's already a middlewaywellness.net and .co. So you better get on that you better get on the Middle Way Wellness Center right now.
Yeah.
What are you doing after this call?
Big two. Getting the Middle Way Wellness Center domain.
That's right.
That's what I'm talking about. Good job, team. Making dreams come true.
Yeah, great job, guys.
It's really good to talk to you guys.
Nicole, you have...
You too.
Yeah. No, say what?
Yeah, definitely. No, nothing. The delay is real sometimes. For those who don't know, our dear friend Nicole is in Amsterdam, and so surely the interwebs, there's a little bit of a delay being so far away.
Yeah. This has to travel a long way. That's pretty amazing. Wow.
It's pretty
I'm
great.
not going to start thinking about that too much. Thanks for
coming
from
don't
so
go there.
far away. I will not. It's a series of tubes. No, it's so glad to connect. Nicole, fantastic coach here, and so glad to have you back on the podcast. We'll have to bring back for wanting part 2. We're going to call it It's Great to Want. This one can be called It's Good to Want. Yeah. And then It's Greatest to Want. We can just keep going. Um, we'll see where it goes.
All right, fellas. Good to see you. I'm out. Take care. Bye.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
This has been the Do You Feel Heard podcast. If you're interested in resources that will help you move through conflict, you can go to doyoufeelheard.com, where we have tools for individuals and couples.